to be beautiful? So we stopped at the term Iberian, as used by the ancient authors, had two meanings, Moors. One more general, referred to the whole of the population of the Iberian Peninsula, Moors. The other, more restricted, Islam, 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 with an ethnic sense to the people living in the eastern and the southern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, Moors, where by the 6th century BC they had absorbed cultural influences from Phoenicians and Greeks. That's why when you get the Holy Name Bible, you read in the preface. Get the Holy Name Bible, read in the preface of it. It'll tell you, when I see my brothers, when I see my so-called Hebrew Israelite brothers, and I love them all, and I say, well, why are you reading a book that don't even have your language, don't even talk about the Messiah in his tongue? It tell you about that right in the beginning of the preface of the Holy Name Bible. So please read it. Although the principalities of Brorek, Leon, and Foner, these are people that research this, are mentioned often in Brittany. Look at these we're always in Brittany. These are us. These are you. Whenever the Britons had dealings outside their borders, only one king of the Britons is mentioned. I'm telling you. It seems highly likely that these many principalities were the equivalent of the mainland British sub-kingdoms, ruled over by a single monarch, in much the same way the high kings of Britain ruled. The Egyptian deity Thoth is the Phoenician Moabite Tut brought to Amorica. I mean, we connect the dots, Moors. After the flood of Noah, per se. After the flood of Noah, Mizor or Mizraim, the son of Ham, and accordingly to the line of Seth, as corrected by a bishop, Cumberland Thoth, appears next, the son of Mizraim. He is therefore the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah. A dissertation on the Celtic deity. You can find Tacitus by W.L. Bowles. You can research the wisdom. So when brothers commentate you about the blood of wisdom, when the preacher don't want to tell you, when they don't touch the genealogies of Jesus, I love doing that when my brothers ask me to come speak. I always touch about the genealogy of Jesus, and there's no curse. Your black skin is no curse. Every time brother asks me to come speak, my so-called Christian brothers, I break this wisdom down on them. Biblical proof. The father of civilization. The father of civilization, the Moors man. Research who Bloomberg is. Research some history, man. That's why we get out of everything. That's why the preacher won't tell you the genealogy of Yahshua the Messiah. They won't talk about Ruth. They won't talk about Tamara. They won't talk about all the Canaanite women. They won't talk about all the Moabite women. It's a reason why. If it takes the blood of Jesus to be saved, then the so-called blacks were born saved, Moors. Why? Because so-called Jesus in their tongue, because there never was a J in the Hebrew alphabet. So we're going to use the correct name. Yahshua was of Moabite and Canaanite blood. I just told you about the code. I just told you. If we research, when we connect the dots, when we talk about the ephah, the mixture, the 11, we got to talk about the blood. But Yahshua was of Moabite and Canaanite blood. So it's in your DNA, Moors. And in case you didn't know, Canaan was one of Ham's sons. Ham in the religious scripture is supposed to be the father of the so-called blacks, right? Not to mention that Ruth was a Moabitess. Excuse me, Moors. But what is the line and genealogy from which Yahshua came? Answer: Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah. And then Moors be arguing. I say, wait, let's stop. Because y'all know we're from the lineage of David, from the tribe of Judah, if you got your paperwork. But Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, Joseph, spiritual father by Mary. So what you need, Moors? Slaves can't get reparations, but they can sure get compensation. In law, Moors, follow me. Damages are awarded typically of money, Moors, to be paid to a person as compensation for loss or injury. The rules for damages can and frequently do vary based on the type of claim which is presented, Moors. Are we clear? For example, We got different levels. Breach of a contract versus a tort claim, and the jurisdiction Moors. At common law, damages are categorized into compensation or actual damages and punitive damages. Compensation damages are further categorized into special damages, Moors, which are economic losses such as loss of earnings, property damage, and medical expenses, etc. Are we clear? And general damages, which are non-economic damages such as pain and suffering and emotional distress. This is why our prophet Moors, Noble Drew Ali, says that they are going to have to pay us for all the work our forefathers, our foreparents did, and without compound interest, with the compound interest. So we just get things right, man. We got to understand who Captain John Hawkins was, how he captured so many Moors. He was given the ship Jesus by Queen Isabella and a Demi Moor banner as a testimony of his enslavement of the Moors. Here go his banner. We don't got to, hey, we just touch dots, Moors. We get out of spookism. We connect the dots, man. We get out of that mess. Movies will tell you about certain things, about Moors. And when I talk about people, science. Black is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. This is black. But it's not your nationality. Shoot, my wallet is black. I love black, but it's not a nationality. And Moors, in science, according to the science of law, follow the context of what I'm saying, Moors. We got to understand, yes, the sun is black. The closer you get to the sun, it's black. Yes, copper equals melanin. It's black. We know that. We know those things. We know the color spectrum. We know that. We know everything comes from dark. We know the color spectrum. We know that. But we talk about according to the science of law, Moors. Context. Black is beautiful. You know what I'm saying? We understand that. The origin of the scientific breakdown of blackness. We understand that. Elijah Poole Bay broke that down. I understand that. But that does not transmute into law, Moors. At law and in reference to nationality, it means a dead nation with no land or flag tied to it, Moors. That's all I'm saying. Black is a slave caste label. Look what caste means. C-A-S-T-E. Like white is, and you know what the white caste represent, Moors. But if you really want something to think about, a Moor with his or her nationality is considered a part of the white caste at law because he is a whole and not a 3/5. I keep telling you, without your nationality and spirituality, which is your religion, because you obey your forefathers and your foremothers, that only make you a complete. That's only then, nationality. And your nationality is your spirituality. Come on, Moors, y'all know what I'm talking about. Come on, Mo. Exactly, my brother. But interestingly, Moors, the word black as a verb has its origin in black, adjective, Old English, B-L-A-E-C, dark, from Proto-Dramatic, B-L-A-K-A-Z, burn, cognatives, Old Norse, B-L-A-K-K-R, dark, Old High German, B-L-A-H, blah, black, Swedish, B-L-A-C-K, ink, Dutch, B-L-A-K-E-N, to burn, from pie, B-H-L-E-G, bleak, to burn, gleam, shine, flash, cognatives, Greek, Pleen, or blink, P-H-L-E-G-E-I-N, to burn, scorch, Latin, flagere, to blaze, glow, burn, from the root, blah, B-H-E-L, to shine, flash, burn, see bleach, Moors, a verb. Exactly, Mo. Bleach, verb, Old English, B-L-A-E-C-A-N, bleach, whiten, from Proto-Dramatic, Blaken, B-L-A-I-K-J-A-N, to make white, cognatives, Old Saxon, bleak, Old Norse, bleaker. Oh man, Moors, let me show you something else. Ooh, I love this, man. Where that other one at? Did I got that one? Oh, I don't even think I got that one. I have to show you. Some more wisdom I'm going to show you. You got to know this stuff. I was just talking about him. Here you go. I'll connect the dots for you, Muurs. I'll connect all the dots. But back to what we were saying. Old Norse, bleak, Dutch, bleeken, or bleak, B-L-E-K-E-N. German, bleaken, to bleach, from pi root, B-H-E-L, to shine, flash, burn. Cognic, Sanskrit, B-H-R-A-J-A-T-E, bleak, shines, Greek, plane, to burn, Latin, flamma, flame, fluma, lightning. Flora, to shine, flash, flare, to burn. Old Church, Slavonic, blue, bleak, blue. White, Lithuanian, balness, B-A-L-N-A-S, pale. Etymology. I'm telling you, Moors, black referring to people did not exist before the 1600s. Did you hear me, Moors? That's why they started our babies, our young Moor brothers and our young Moorish sisters, our empresses, our Hebrews, our Hebrewites. That's why they started us in 1600s. Prior to that, blacks were known as Moors, blackamoors, then black. Flat out. Black, noun. Old English, bleak. You see the same thing, bleach and black? You see the same thing, the color black, also ink. That's why they took Indian brown out the coloring box. I keep doing root. You got to know etymology, root words. Indi, color, color, not mankind. From noun use of black, adjective, from the late 14th century as dark spot in the pupil of the eye. The meaning black person, African, is from 1620s, perhaps maybe the late 13th century, and blackamoor from the 1540s. That's why in older religious books they talk about the Moor. In the Geneva Scriptures, the 1599. That's why when Moors, the King James ain't wrote nothing. Yeah, he was a copper colored race. But anything, it was conquered. I'm telling you. The Moors who ruled Spain over 800 years introduced new scientific techniques to Europe, such as a device for measuring the position of the stars and planets. The astrolabe, or labe. The astrolabe. Scientists progressed in astronomy, chemistry, physics, mathematics, geography, philosophy, flourishing in Moorish Spain. That's us. That's why I said we scientists. We all that. It was due to the Moorish education of Europe that enabled the Renaissance and scientific revolution. Moors, in contrast, medieval Europe was steeped in squalor and bleakness of scientific and cultural ignorance. The cast adobe of the medieval European was often dank and cold, with the floor covering an animal and human droppings. Moors. It is only after the coming of the Moors and other Muslims to the Western Europe that the Christians began to reassemble an industrialized civilization in true sense of the word. That's in the golden age of the Moors, page 214. When I be talking about stuff and Moors be showing books and they be posting memes or covers of books, I be like, and I talk about it like, where that's at? I'm like, in the book that you post in the cover of. Oh, so it ain't no difference. When I talk about conquered and reconquered, when I talk about who the Morisco means, Morisco means Moorish. The wars went on, and one by one, more strongholds fell until only Granada remained in their hands. Malaga was taken in 1487 after a long siege by the forces of Ferdinand and Isabella. Oh, my dad, I think he was reading it. Oh, let me show you. I'm telling you, Moors, one of the biggest wars in history, when they stripped the fez from you and the turbans, take that off the sandals. You got to know this wisdom. The Ottoman Empire, you got to know this wisdom. You got to know this history. You got to know this history. But the wars went on, one by one. The Moor strongholds fell until only Granada remained in their hands. Magla was taken 1487 after a long siege by the forces of Ferdinand and Isabella. And in 1492, Granada was recovered. Many of the Moors remained in Spain. Moors, those who remained, listen to me, faithful to Islam were called Mujiris, while those who accepted Christianity were called Moriscos. Look in the Columbia Encyclopedia, the 6th edition. Moriscos, Spain, Moorish. Moors converted to Christianity after the Christian reconquest. Reconquest, with an R-E in front of conquest. That was around the 11th and the 15th century Moors in Spain. The Moors who had became subjects of Christian kings as the Reconquest progressed to the 15th century were called Mujeres or Majares, Mudejares. They remained Muslim and their religion and customs were generally respected. After the fall of Granada, 1492 Moors, Cardinal Jimenez converted many Moors by peaceful means. However, the rigorous treatment of those who refused conversion or apostatized from the new faith led to an uprising. That was in 1500 to 1502 in Granada. This would soon suppress Moors. Faith with choosing between conversion or banishment, the majority accepted conversion, but many continued secretly to practice Islam. The Moriscos at that time provided the Ottoman Turks with information, facilitating Turkish raids on the Spanish coast. Persecuted by the Spanish Inquisition. I hope I showed y'all that book. Where's my Spanish Inquisition book? Did I pull it out? I'm tired of pulling books out. My wife gonna kick my butt. But by the Spanish Inquisition, where was I at? Okay, blah, 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 blah. Where was I at? Okay, yeah. By the Spanish Inquisition and subjected to the restrictive legislation, 1526 to 1527. The Moriscos rose in a bloody rebellion, 1568 to 71, which Philip II put down with the help of John of Austria. The Moriscos prospered in spite of persecutions and further Spanish agriculture, trade, and industries. However, in 1609, Philip III, influenced by Lerma, decreed their expulsion for both religious and political reasons. Moriscos, who were forced to convert to Christianity rather than be killed or expelled from Spain and Portugal in the early 1500s. Over time, the term was used in a pejorative sense, applied to those nominal Catholics who were subject of secretly practicing Islam. You heard what I'm telling you? When I talk about the European Masonry, they secretly practicing Islam. That's why they sons of Muslims. The Moriscos were eventually expelled from Spain between 1609, Valencia. So let's talk about the Thanksgiving celebration, which was the fall and Judaization of the Moors. Man, my page is running. I gotta get a new copy. On November 25th, 1491, after a long bloody fight against the Moors, the Asiatic Muslims, who occupied Spain over 700 years, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain fell upon their knees and gave thanks to Santiago for their victory over the Moors. On the same day, the Pope of Rome proclaimed that day to be forever a day of thanksgiving for all European Christians. Why? Because the so-called blacks of Granada, the Moors, who were originally from Africa, Spain, and Arabia, surrendered the city of Granada, the last stronghold of the Moors in Spain, and the walls of the Moorish Empire came tumbling down. These Sadean were later betrayed, captured, and sold into America as slaves. Hunting down the stern, deep olive Kharajite Moor from Baghdad, Turkey, and slaying or enslaving him was an act highly regarded by the Christian European forces who despised these Moors, mockingly called Turkeys. Abraham Kalula, Thanksgiving for whom? So, do you have a Moor's head, Moors? It seems taking the Moor's head was a symbol of triumph and later status in Spain, while in much of the European, the heraldry denotes proud lineage. That's why I say you got to understand the duality. However, this was not always the case. The Moor head, noun, plural, Moor's head or Moor's head, full definition of Moor's head, a representation of a human head with feathers. With features, characteristic or formerly supposed to be characteristic of a Moor. A heraldic representation of a head, usually with the features and color of a black person, depicted in profile with a band about the forehead. I wish I would have had my shirts with the Moorhead, the shirts that I print with our flag, with the four sustaining on it. Fire, water, wind, and earth. Unless a different position or a different headdress is specified. You can research that in the Merriam Dictionary, Moors. Motto, Kolanabu. Motto translated, colon, forever. Name, variations. M-O-O-R-E, M-O-R-E, M-O-H-R, M-O-O-R. Coats of arms of Pope Benedict. See? Telling you, man. We connect the dots, man. We get out of all spookism. Moors ruled for 800 years. The Moors who ruled Spain for 800 years introduced new scientific techniques to Europe, such as devices for measuring positions, etc. I gave you that. The Moorish dance of Europe and the Mariska dance of the Americans is of Moorish origin. In the 15th century, Moorish dance. Moorish dance, from Flemish Moorish dans, from Old French Moorish, Moorish, Arab, black, from M-O-R-E, M-O-R, see M-O-R-E. Unknown why the English dance was called this, Moors, unless in reference to the fantastic dance or costumes. You got to compare the Italian Morisco, a related dance, literally meaning Moorish. The German Moorischentanz, Moorischentanz, M-O-R-I-S-K-E-N-T-A-N-Z. French Moorisk, Moorisk, French M-O-R-E-S-Q-U-E. Look at that stuff in etymology. We must know this. Where is Maurice? Referring to Saint Maurice the Moor. The Europeans say as the dance, the Moorish dance. Originally the Moorish dance, Moors. Moorish dance, title Moorish dance throughout Europe and extended to the Middle East, India, and parts of Central and South America. Notable examples are the Perston, the dancer masqueraders of Austria, the ritual dances such as the Moriscas or Moriscos, Santiagos, and the Machians of the Mediterranean and Latin America, the Colasari or Romania. The wide distribution of such dances suggests that the Native American dance, Moors, the Native American dance, Mexico and Mesoamerica, the Simurban, the semi-urban, the fiestas of Mesoamerica include three types of European-influenced dance dramas, the Morisca and the variants, Moros, Cristianos, Santiagos, Machini, sword dance. All this is the Moor stuff. Remember I was telling you about Swarty Pyatt? The legend of Swarty Pete or Black Pete, also occasionally referred to him as a Moor, a term that was more than scientific and referred to one of the many different groups originating in North Africa that at one time controlled Spain. But the phenotypic marker of the Moors varies, while the depiction of Pete stays fairly consistent. Dark skin, curly hair, red lips. You got to look up Jan Schenkman's book, Saint Nicholas Enzine, Saint Nicholas. When I tell you in the scriptures, man, stop following Saint Nick. Those foreign gods. It's in the scriptures. He tell you, stop following the Nicolaitans. Acts chapter 24 and 5. A pestilent fellow, the ringleader of the Nazarenes. But they're going around following the Nicolaitans. I keep telling you, Christians, they don't understand. Your preacher, that's supposed to be your brother. He's supposed to be teaching you to write. But they not, because they don't know what the scripture's talking about. You're doing all the stuff that the Most High, that the Hebrew God told you not to do. Not to follow Nicolaitans. Stop following Saint Nick. Acts chapter 24 and 5. This pestilent fellow, the ringleader of the Nazarenes. But St. Nicholas and his servants, 1850. That's to be going back to that Pope, to that Catholic stuff, has been credited with establishing and bringing uniformly to Dutch. Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas. Look that up, Moors the Netherlands. S-I-N-T-E-R-K-L-A-A-S. You going around celebrating some Christmas? Well, what's in the Bible? Man, the Bible tell you what not to do as well. Tradition. The book reflected the familiar elements such as riding a horse, giving gift through chimneys, You know what the vole? Research what all that stuff was, man. Research what it was. It had a whole different name. The Volt. I might be saying it wrong. I have to look at my studies. It was a Vol. I can't even remember. But what they called it. And it's all, that's why I said you got to understand ancient languages. Because you'll be like, man, Volt or Vogue, I can't remember. I have to look at my studies. But through chimneys and coming from Spain, it introduced bringing Santa Claus on a steamer, and perhaps most significantly, accompanied by one black-skinned servant, commonly interpreted to be a Moor. This servant did not have a name. Rhymes from the book are still sung as popular Santa Claus songs, such as Z Jeans, Comte de Tzumbut. But that's a whole nother language. Seeing them more in the morning was unlucky to ancient Romans. You hear what I said? Seeing them more in the morning was unlucky to ancient Romans. The old Romans, too, according to Juvenal, thought it was unlucky to see a blackamoor before breakfast. One of the that should he cross that way, his omen would discolor all day long. That's in J.A. Rogers, Moors. Sex and Race. When I broke J.A. Rogers down on campus, when Europeans thought he was a white man, like I said, no, just like they think Brother Pascal was a European, no. J.A. Rogers was homeschooled systematically. I got all J.A. Rogers books. Stonehenge was built by a Moor. Now, as a Negro is still known as Moorian in English, may not this indicate that Moorian belonged to a black race? The Cushite builders. That's in Massey's, a book of ancient beginnings to Egyptian origins of the British Isles. Moors are the preservers of the Kemetic sciences. In the 8th century AD, the Moors, the natives of Mauritania in North Africa, invaded Spain and took with them the Egyptian culture. They preserved it. As such, the people of North Africa were the neighbors of the Egyptians. I keep telling you, when Moors left Jerusalem, the Hebrews, it wasn't no slave, it was a famine. They went right to Egypt, which is right around the corner, walking distance, and became the custodians of Egyptian culture, which they spread through considerable portions of Africa, Asia Minor, and Europe. During the occupation of Spain, the Moors displayed the considerable credit, the grandeur of Africa culture and civilization. You can research this in George G.M. James' Stolen Legacy. Morano is a term for the Moorish Jews of Spain who secretly practiced the Hebraic faith after being forced into Christianity by the Europeans. The Inquisition was aimed mostly at the Jews and Muslims who had overly converted to Christianity, but were thought to be practicing their faith secretly. They were respectively called the Marinos and the Moriscos. Do your research, Moors. Marinos, Portuguese, Moreno, Catalan, Marinos, were originally Jews living in the Iberian Peninsula who converted or were forced to convert to Christianity, some of whom have continued to practice Judaism in secret. The term came in later use in 1492 with the Castellanian Alhambra Decree, reversing protections originally in the Treaty of Granada, 1491 Moors. Fidel Castro has Moorish blood. He has the Moreno ancestry. Famous Hispanics who have acknowledged Moreno ancestry include Rita Moreno, Fidel Castro. Jews have played an important role in the history of Monterrey, Mexico. The Gazra family, one of Mexico's richest, or Cerevisiria, Moctezuma fame, are Jews. Frida Kahlo's father, Guillermo Kahlo, a somewhat renowned photographer in his own right, was a Hungarian Jew. Diego Rivera admitted having Moreno ancestry as real. Look it up. Tarifa. The first human traces in Tarifa date back to the Paleolithic times. In the mountains range around Tarifa, there are more than 50 caves with prehistoric art made in Paleolithic ages, and later the Cueva del Moro, a cave with Paleolithic carvings, and the Necropolis de los Algabres, an ancient cemetery from Bronze Ages, Moors. The city derived its name from Tarif bin Malik, a Berber who occupied the city in July 710 AD. The Arabs called the place Island of Tarif, hence the name Tarifa. Under the Muslim domination, it was never very populated, although it was port of great activity. Moors, the Muslim armies, El Andalus, Vandalus, used this harbor for, disembarking and resting their troops on their way to the North Africa, being only 14 kilometers from the African coast. I'm telling you, Obama joked about being that he was born in Morocco. You can research this stuff. Washington, D.C., it was a press conference. And this morning, President Barack Obama admitted that he was, in fact, born in Morocco. It's halfway between Kenya and the U.S. Mr. Obama explained. So in the spirit of bipartisanism, compromise, I'm going to admit that I was born in Morocco. I haven't seen the long-form birth certificate either, and I don't remember my birth. So who knows? There's probably some truth in both sides, Moors. I'm just extending the olive branch to look. So let's deal with etymology of Negro, black, colored, Muros, and more. Late 14th century, past the adjective from color in reference to non-white skin. 1600s, Negro, the noun, member of a black skin race of Africa. 1550s, from Spanish or Portuguese, Negro, black, from Latin, nigrum, nominative, nigger. Black, dark, sable, dusky, figuratively gloomy, unlucky, bad, wicked, unknown origin, perhaps from pie. As an adjective from 1590, used with a capital N, became generally early in the 20th century, 1930s in New York Times style book, in reference to U.S. citizens of African descent. But because of its perceived association with the white imposed attitudes and roles, the word was ousted in the 1960s. Blackamoor is from the 1540s. Blackamoor, dark-skinned person, 1540s. Kemet Mobite, later entering the Greek language and passed along to Europe, 14th century, from Old French, M-O-R-E, from Medieval Latin, M-O-R-U-S, from Latin, M-A-U-R-U-S, inhabitant of Mauritania, Northwest Africa, a region now corresponding to northern Algeria, and Morocco, from Greek, M-A-U-R-O-S, perhaps a native name, or else Moors. Connotative with Moros, M-A-U-R-O-S, black, but this adjective only appears in late Greek and may as well be from the people's name as reverse, being a dark people in relation to Europeans. Full definition of cognate, of the same or similar nature. Are you hearing me, Moors? Generically alike, related by blood, also related on the mother side, related by descendant from the same ancestral language, Moors. Next, of a word or morpheme, relating by derivation, borrowing or descent, of a substantive, related to a verb, usually by derivation, and serving as its object to reinforce the meaning. Therefore, though black exists in English dictionary in 1612 Moors, the major word in use was Negro, until 1960s, when it gave way to black. Also, Negro was not even capitalized until the 20th century Moors. Therefore, saying that black is connotative to Moor, meaning that they may come from the same parent root, is far from saying that capital M-O-O-R means black Moors. So then the real question remains, why is this still being taught to so-called blacks, to Moors, and to what end, Moors? Black is then only 55 years old. As a euphemism for the identity is so-called blacks, Moors. And though the Greek moros is cognate to Moor, M-A-U-R-O-S is cognate to M-O-O-R, they do not hold the same definition, Moors. Likewise, M-A-U-R-O-S only appears in late Greek. This means that it had not made its way into the Greek form, the native word M-E-R, M-U-R, that already existed in Comedian and Mobatic language, Moors. Don't we know this? I hope we do. We teach it. Declaration of land rights, reclaiming of sacred Moors lands in Jerusalem. whereas Moors were part of the parcel to the holy territories, Jerusalem and Palestine, whereas Moors initially made Jerusalem their domicile because they preferred Jerusalem as a center for a divine education, as well as a holy territory. Whereas November 2nd, 1320 CE, a Moor scholar named Abu Madain Shuaib bin al-Mujid Abu Abdullah Mold bin al-Sheikh al-Amin, aka the Magnet of Morocco, identified two Moorish territories in Jerusalem, whereas according to the 15th century historian Mujara Adin, the quarter was established in 1193 by Saladin's son al-Malik al-Fadil as a Waqf, charitable trust, a WAQF, dedicated to the Moors. He also established a school there, the Afdaliya, the Afdaliyyah. You see the YAH in it, don't you? When I was telling you about the palindrome, Y to the right, Y to the left. Whereas first location was the village called En Karim. En Karim consisted of plains, rough terrain, houses, for the inhabitants, orchards of pomegranate, olive, fig, and oak trees, water wells, and old Roman vineyards. Whereas Al-Mala, Al-Kubra, south, En Quran, Al-Kuna, Harash, Satif, Al-Swat, Al-Bukiara, north, En Al-Shaqui, west, Al-Maha, Al-Kubra, and Beth Maril, east. The second area was located in Jerusalem itself and is known as Kantara, Asbat, Al-Banat, at Bilal or Babal, Salila. The document stated that the legacy would remain through the ages, even until this day Moors. Whereas both En Karim and Iwan or Awan, EWAN, have been dedicated to the Moors in Jerusalem, or those visiting, the city, regardless of their color, trade, sex, age, or status. Moors, and nobody could fight the Moors over the WAF, the WAQF, which Moors could make use of it in different ways, such as rental, agriculture, or sharing, and the priority will be for the newcomers, then the indebted, and so on. Whereas Moorish ownership was solidified by an organized plan for the management of property and the dispersal of the finances generated by the land, etc. Whereas in 1887, a failed fraudulent attempt to buy the Moroccan quarter was made by Baron Rothschild, who conceived a plan to purchase the quarter and rebuild it as a merit and honor to the Jewish people. Whereas in 1918, Moors, Chaim Weizmann, then a prominent Zionist leader, sent a letter to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office asking for the quarter to be vacated and the wall placed under Jewish ownership. However, the British maintained the status quo, whereas the Great Britain appointed a commission under the approval of the League of Nations to settle the issue. The commission again reaffirmed the status quo. I can go on and on, Moors. Research it. When Jordanian forces occupied the old city in 1948, I'll show you the picture when we got the new Moors of the Zionist temple of the Moorish Jews. I show you when we have the flag, which Israel created. They stated we already got the so-called 6-point star flag in 1928. In the picture, pull it up. We the Moors included the denationalization and the disenfranchised Moors of North America do proclaim and declare the land in question be returned to the rightful inheritors as outlined in the WAQF of the great and noble Saladin. Come on, man. Y'all know this. Moors, we know this. I'm going to give you a little bit more and I'm going to eat. I'm going to give you a source. F.E. Peters, 1948, Jerusalem, Princeton, New Jersey.